You know, sometimes the most interesting deep dives aren't about like settled facts, but
Yeah.
about the what ifs
Oh, yeah.
and maybes.
The hypotheticals.
Yeah, exactly. And today we're looking at one of those.
Okay.
The possibility of Owen Benjamin
Interesting.
banking a return to the Joe Rogan Experience.
Yeah, what's really interesting about this is that it's not just like
Right.
about a potential podcast episode. It's
Yeah.
it's about these bigger
Yeah.
cultural conversations that are kind of bubbling up around Owen Benjamin in general.
Yeah.
We're talking about changing careers, finding communities outside the mainstream,
Right.
and the power of online platforms to chase narratives.
Absolutely. And what makes this even more interesting is that
Yeah.
our deep dive today is fueled by what people are saying online,
Oh, cool.
specifically in those Joe Rogan and Owen Benjamin subreddits.
Oh, wow. Those Reddit threads are like a window into what fans are thinking and feeling about this potential reunion.
Right.
There are some very strong opinions out there,
Oh, yeah.
both for and against it.
Let's step back for a second and make sure everyone's on the same page.
Okay.
For those who might not be familiar with Owen Benjamin, he's a comedian who was on JRE
Yeah.
a few times years ago.
A while back.
Yeah. But his life took a pretty dramatic turn,
I've heard that.
and he's been on quite a journey since then.
Yeah.
He's definitely a controversial figure.
Yeah, one of the key events
Yeah.
that seems to color a lot of the discussion around Owen
All right.
is what's often called the pot brownie incident.
Oh, right.
For those unfamiliar,
Yeah.
this refers to an appearance Owen made on Joey Diaz's podcast,
Right.
where he had a strong reaction
Yeah.
to a cannabis edible.
Right.
Now, this incident,
Oh.
along with some of Owen's later statements
Oh.
and his departure from Hollywood,
Right.
has led some, including Rogan,
Yeah.
to suggest that he wasn't quite the same afterward.
Yes, there's this narrative out there that Owen went crazy.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But when you look at the Reddit threads,
Oh, really?
you find people pushing back against that narrative.
Interesting.
They argue that Owen chose to leave Hollywood
Okay.
on his own terms to build a new life
Right.
focused on homesteading in Idaho.
Okay.
What's particularly interesting is that this is a path
Yeah.
Joe Rogan himself is now exploring
Oh, wow.
with his plans for a ranch.
That parallel is fascinating
Right.
because it challenges the idea
Yeah.
that Owen is
Yeah.
simply unstable or erratic.
Right.
If Rogan, who is widely respected,
Yeah.
is drawn to a similar lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
it forces us to reconsider
Right.
our assumptions about Owen's choices.
It really does make you think.
Yeah.
And this shift in Owen's career
Right.
led him to build an online community,
Right.
which brings in another layer of complexity to the story.
Okay.
He has this dedicated following
Yeah.
who call themselves bears,
Interesting.
and he interacts with them through his online streaming.
But even that online presence isn't without controversy.
Right.
You see comments criticizing Owen
Uh-huh.
for focusing more on
Yeah.
making money from his community
Yeah.
than on actual homesteading.
There are some pretty brutal comments in the threads.
Oh, really?
Like one that says his content has a 100.1 bitching to farming ratio, and another one claiming he can't even change a tire.
Ouch.
Ouch.
Those are harsh. But you also have people defending Owen,
Oh, interesting.
suggesting that his online persona is partly a way of
Okay.
coping with his decision to leave Hollywood.
Right.
They say he's genuinely trying to build a self-sufficient life,
Yeah.
even if it's not always perfect.
So we have these contrasting narratives
Right.
about Owen's capabilities and motivations,
Yeah.
and it's hard to know what to make of it all.
Right.
And then to make things even more interesting,
Okay.
there's the Kanye West connection.
Oh, yeah, what's that?
Right. Remember when Kanye was on Alex Jones's show
Yeah.
and brought up Owen, claiming Dave Chappelle was stealing his jokes?
Oh, wow.
Apparently, Kanye and Owen were friends at some point.
Interesting.
And we can't forget Brian Redban,
Right.
Rogan's former podcasting partner,
Yeah.
who hinted at an unspoken rule on JRE
Oh, really?
regarding Owen's name.
Huh. So there's like this hidden history,
Yeah.
this potential behind-the-scenes tension that we're not privy to.
It definitely adds to the intrigue.
It does.
So here we are. We
Yeah.
have a comedian with a controversial past.
Right.
a devoted online following whispers of unspoken rules,
Yeah.
and a potential face-to-face with Joe Rogan.
Wow.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is, and it's important to remember that this isn't just about
Right.
whether a JRE reunion would be entertaining.
Yeah.
It's about these bigger questions that Owen's story raises.
Right.
How we perceive authenticity, how we grapple with changing narratives,
Right.
and how online communities shape our understanding of the world.
Yeah.
Big stuff.
Yeah, it is.
You know, as we dive deeper into these Reddit threads,
Yeah.
it becomes clear that there are some compelling arguments
Okay.
for why a JRE reunion with Owen Benjamin could actually be valuable.
Okay. I'm curious. What are people saying?
Well,
What makes them think this could be a good thing?
a common thread you see is this idea that
Oh, yeah.
Owen deserves a platform
Uh-huh.
to share his side of the story.
Right.
There's a feeling that
Okay.
the pot brownie incident and its aftermath have been used to unfairly define him,
Right.
to paint him as someone he's not anymore.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah,
It seems like a lot of people believe he's grown and matured since then,
right.
and they want to see him get a chance to show that growth to a larger audience.
Exactly. And remember, this incident happened years ago.
Right.
People change, evolve, learn from their experiences.
Yeah.
To dismiss someone based solely on the event from their past
Right.
without acknowledging their potential for growth
Yeah.
feels a bit unfair, don't you think?
I agree. It's like we're holding people hostage
All right.
to their past selves,
Yeah.
not allowing them the space to become something more.
And this also ties into the idea of Joe Rogan as a champion of open dialogue.
Right.
He often talks about the importance of hearing different perspectives,
Yeah.
even if those perspectives are controversial.
Yes. And having Owen on someone with whom he's had this very public falling out
Yeah.
could be seen as a way for Rogan to demonstrate
Right.
that commitment to open dialogue in a
Yeah.
really powerful way.
I think you've hit on something important.
Yeah.
It's not just about giving Owen a platform.
Right.
It's about what that act would say about Rogan himself.
Right.
It would be a statement about his willingness
Yeah.
to engage with people he disagrees with,
Yeah.
people who have even criticized him in the past.
Right.
It could be a real example of forgiveness and understanding.
There's actually a comment in one of the threads
Oh, really?
that expresses this sentiment beautifully. It says, "It would show a lot about Joe's character if he could reconcile with Owen.
Wow.
It would be a powerful example of forgiveness and understanding."
That's a great quote.
Yeah.
And it captures the optimistic view
Right.
of what this reunion could be.
Yeah.
But of course, not everyone shares that optimism.
True. There are plenty of people who are very skeptical
Right.
about this whole idea.
Yeah.
What are their concerns?
Well, a lot of the pushback stems from the fear
Okay.
that Owen would derail the show.
Yeah, I could see that.
There's a concern that he would hijack the conversation
Right.
and use it as a platform for negativity or even hate speech.
And it's understandable why people would worry about that.
Right.
Owen does have a history of making inflammatory statements.
He does. And there are definitely those who believe that giving him a platform on JRE,
Right.
especially with Rogan's massive audience,
Yeah.
would legitimize those statements
Uh-huh.
and potentially amplify harmful beliefs.
There's a comment that really stood out to me. It says, "Owen's views are dangerous, and Rogan would be irresponsible to give him a platform."
Wow.
It would be like handing a megaphone to someone who
Well,
wants to spread hate and misinformation.
That's a strong statement.
Yeah.
And it highlights the heart of the argument against the reunion.
Yeah.
It's about the potential consequences
Right.
of giving someone like Owen a voice on a large platform.
It's a difficult dilemma.
It is.
On the one hand, you want to believe in the power of dialogue,
right.
in the possibility of engaging with different viewpoints
Mm.
and finding common ground.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you also have to be aware of the potential harm
Right.
that can be done by amplifying certain voices.
Exactly. And it becomes even more complicated when you consider that
Yeah.
even some of those who express concern about Owen
Right.
also admit they'd still listen to the episode,
Oh, really?
even if just out of morbid curiosity.
Oh, that's interesting. Like that
Right.
that kind of rubbernecking phenomenon.
It speaks to the entertainment value, the spectacle
Right.
that surrounds someone like Owen Benjamin.
Yeah.
He's polarizing, he's unpredictable,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes him inherently fascinating to watch,
Right.
even if you disagree with everything he says.
And that's where it gets really tricky, right?
It does.
Because even if you believe that Owen's views are harmful,
Right.
ignoring him doesn't make those views go away.
We're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Silencing someone doesn't address the underlying issues or
Mm.
the reasons why people might find those views appealing.
So the question becomes,
Yeah.
is it better to engage with those views,
Right.
to challenge them in a public forum like JRE,
Uh-huh.
or is it better to try to silence them,
Right.
to deny them any oxygen? It's a tough call.
It is. And ultimately, I think it comes down to
Yeah.
your personal beliefs
Yeah.
about the power of dialogue,
Right.
your tolerance for controversy,
Uh-huh.
and your assessment of the potential risks and benefits.
You've also brought up an interesting point
Yeah.
about Rogan's evolving lifestyle. Right. His interest in homesteading.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's on a similar path to Owen,
Mm-hmm.
seeking a life outside the mainstream,
Right.
embracing self-sufficiency.
And this parallel adds another layer of complexity to the discussion, doesn't it?
It does.
Because it challenges the narrative that Owen is somehow off the rails
Right.
for choosing this lifestyle.
If Rogan, a figure who is generally seen as balanced and successful,
Right.
is drawn to the same things that drew Owen to homesteading,
Yeah.
it makes you wonder if we've been too quick to judge Owen's choices.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it raises the question,
Yeah.
is there something about our modern world,
Uh-huh.
our hyper-connected, always-on culture,
Right.
that is pushing people towards
Yeah.
these alternative ways of living?
Right.
And if so, what does that say about us?
That's a great question, and maybe a conversation between Rogan and Owen,
Right.
two guys who are both exploring these alternative paths,
Yeah.
could shed some light on those bigger questions.
I think that's a possibility,
Yeah.
but it's also important to acknowledge that
Right.
there are some valid concerns
Yeah.
about Owen's ability to engage in a productive conversation.
Right.
He does have a history of being volatile,
Yeah.
of resorting to personal attacks
Yeah.
and inflammatory rhetoric.
That's true. And it's worth considering whether Rogan would be able to effectively moderate the conversation
Yeah.
to keep it on track
Right.
and prevent it from spiraling into chaos.
And it's also worth considering how the audience would react.
Right.
It's clear from the Reddit threads
Yeah.
that this is a very polarizing topic.
Yeah.
Some people will be thrilled to hear this conversation.
Right.
Others would be vehemently opposed.
There's also a paternalistic tone in some of the comments.
Oh, interesting.
This sense that people are worried about Owen,
Okay.
that they see him as someone who needs help.
I noticed that too.
Yeah.
Like they're viewing him as a troubled child
Right.
rather than a grown man who is responsible for his own actions.
And I wonder if that paternalistic attitude,
Yeah.
however well-intentioned it might be,
Right.
ultimately undermines Owen's agency.
Right.
It prevents us from seeing him as a complex individual
Yeah.
who is capable of making his own choices,
Right.
even if we don't agree with them.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And it speaks to a broader issue
Yeah.
of how we treat public figures who deviate from the norm.
Right.
We tend to either idolize them or demonize them,
Yeah.
often without fully understanding the complexities of their lives.
And I think that's one of the dangers of relying solely on social media for information.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in the echo chambers.
Yeah.
To surround yourself with people who reinforce your existing beliefs
Right.
and to dismiss anyone who challenges those beliefs.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to engage with diverse perspectives.
Yeah.
To listen to people who think differently than we do.
Right.
Even if it makes us uncomfortable.
It's challenging, but it's essential if we want to have any hope of understanding the world around us and
Yeah.
each other.
I couldn't agree more.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about like the arguments for and against this whole thing,
Right.
potential risks and rewards
Yeah.
of a Joe Rogan Experience reunion with Owen Benjamin.
Uh-huh.
But I'm curious to know,
Yeah.
what would it actually take
Okay.
to make this a worthwhile episode?
Yeah.
What kind of conversation would make people hit that subscribe button
Right.
and tell their friends you have to listen to this?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
For starters, I think it would need to go beyond
Okay.
rehashing the pot brownie incident
Right.
or getting bogged down in conspiracy theories.
Right. So less about dwelling on the past
Yeah.
and more about their present lives,
Yeah.
their shared interests, their perspectives on life outside the system.
Exactly. And remember, you pointed out that
Right.
Owen has a family.
Yeah.
He's married to Amy, who's an engineer, and they homeschool their children.
You're so right.
Yeah.
This is a side of him that rarely gets discussed.
It doesn't.
But it's a huge part of who he is.
It is.
Yeah, exploring those personal aspects would humanize Owen,
Totally.
move beyond the caricatures and controversies, and
Mm.
reveal a more nuanced understanding of him as a person.
For sure. And it would also make the conversation more relatable for the listeners.
Right.
I mean, we all grapple with these ideas of authenticity, purpose,
Yeah.
and finding our place in the world.
It could be fascinating to hear how their approaches to those questions
Yeah,
have converged and diverged over the years.
totally.
Owen was on JRE back when it was still a relatively small operation,
Yeah, a long time ago.
before Rogan had his massive Spotify deal and became a house.